Yeah, students, a very good evening to you all. And once again, welcome to this recorded lectures. Of course, online, some of you are joining, and some of you are not able to join. Even then, no need to worry. So, in this class, let us continue on the leftover sonnet. That is the last sonnet prescribed for your study is sonnet number 130. So, we have seen the four sonnets of Shakespeare from the first group. As I have already told you, they are from the first group. So that group belongs to the sonnets written to the fair youth or fair young man. He is also called as fair young man. So now it is the sonnet number 130 is a sonnet from the second group, that is the sonnets written to the dark lady. Okay, so the dark lady who um, is his lover, and also as I told you that if you take a biographical analysis of sonnets, there are many things that we may wonder it, but we are not going into that. So let us take only the gist, and also how important that sonnet is in in the sequence that Shakespeare has written. So let me share my screen for that. Um, yeah, is my screen visible to you?
No, yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm changing
Yes,
it.
ma'am.
Yeah, right. So this is sonnet 130. Um, See, this goes like this. My mistress' eyes are nothing like the sun. Coral is far more red than her lips red. If snow be white, why then her breasts are dun. If hairs be wires, black wires grow on her head. So this is the first quatrain of sonnet 130. Of course, you can very much, you know, realize that it is very different from the previous sonnets that we have studied. Okay. Those sonnets which are written to celebrate either the beauty or friendship or love, in general, or for the fair young man. Now you can see this word, my mistress. Okay. And here you have comparisons. Okay. And that too, the comparisons are negative. See here, he's saying, my mistress' eyes are nothing like the sun. Usually, this is referred as anti-Petrarchan sonnet. Okay, you got the point, no? Petrarch, you know, who was very popular in Italy for writing his sonnets in praising the beauty, the physical beauty or spiritual beauty, and also the virtues of his beloved, etc. Petrarch is very popular for writing his sonnet sequence. Okay. But here, anti-Petrarchan, this sonnet is considered as anti-Petrarchan sonnet because Shakespeare here is not trying to idealize the beauty of his beloved or mistress. Okay, see, idealizing the beauty of beloved or mistress is a very convention, is the convention that is followed even in the Elizabethan period or Renaissance England, because the convention is to compare the parts of women, especially eyes or nose or lips, or waist, okay, etc., and also her walking, talking, hair, color, all these. This is the convention, and the convention, of course, is not broken by anyone. And Shakespeare, of course, is breaking that convention and is trying to say that my mistress' eyes are nothing like the sun. See, sun's brightness. I hope if you remember epithalamion, how Spencer describes the beauty of his bride, wherein he says her eyes are very bright. Okay. Immediately after waking out of the bed, her eyes are dimmed, but after that they are shining very much. So you can go back to epithalamion or prothalamion, where we find Spencer comparing the beauty, okay, of women, the different organs or different body parts to different what you call different elements in the nature or the parts of the nature, etc. So that convention was very well followed by Spencer, but Shakespeare is not following that, he's breaking. So that is why we call this as an anti-Petrarchan sonnet. And of course it is a very important, because Shakespeare, though he has broken the convention, of course stands good in giving the description of his mistress. Okay, so he doesn't want to say that his mistress eyes are like the sun, and then he says that coral is far more red than her lips red. See, this is again a popular convention to compare the lips of a woman to the red. Okay, even in Telugu we have saying no danda pandu lanti padalu, etc. So like that here in England also it is very like cherries. I think Spencer compares lips to cherries like that. Here Shakespeare is saying that of course lips might be red to extent, but I don't think that they surpass the redness of the coral. So that is why he is saying coral is far more red than the lips of my mistress. And then coming to the whiteness, if snow be white, why then her breasts are done? Okay, naturally we have seen in epithalamion the whiteness of the neck, okay, body, etc., face, forehead, etc., compared to the whiteness of many like the snow on the Mount Pindus, okay, or Jove when he himself transformed to what you call as a swan. Okay, where we found that in prothalamion he says the whiteness of the brides is compared very much, etc. But here Shakespeare is saying that of course she might be white, but it is not to compare with the whiteness of the snow. They are done means dull. Okay, comparing the whiteness, because they are white in color, of course we compare, because we are brown people, and we naturally, if we go to our Kavya Natakas, because you'll be reading a paper for translations of Telugu Kavya Natakas into English, then you will find even in Telugu we have this tradition of comparing the lips or eyes, forehead, or color, etc. So we golden brown, we say golden brown. That doesn't mean that we are as brown as gold, etc. Yet that is a convention. And here also in England especially, the convention of comparing the whiteness of a women's body to the whiteness of anything like snow white, or the swan's white, or milk white, etc. So this is there, this convention is there. But Shakespeare here says that of course snow is what, but I don't find her breasts to be that much whiter than snow. And if hairs be wires, black wires grow on her head. So this is again a convention comparing hairs to the wires, like wires. Actually they are in epithalamion you have this comparison of brown, like the silk that is there on the corn. Okay, so it is brown. But here he is saying that if you want to compare the hairs of my mistress, black wires grow on her head, because this is a dark lady. Here he is not comparing any white lady, but this black lady, and those black ladies are having black hair only. So he says that if you think that hair should be compared to wires, I feel that is Shakespeare says that black wires are growing on her head. So the first quatrain, it is all description of I know her lips and breast and her white color and eyes also, how whether they are bright or not. So now come to the second quatrain. We have, I have seen roses damasked, red and white, but no such roses see I in her cheeks. And in some perfumes is there more delight than in the breath that from my mistress reeks. See, this again, one more convention is to compare the rosiness in the cheeks. Cheeks are compared to roses. So this is what Shakespeare is so bringing here. I have seen roses damasked, red and white, but not such roses see in her cheeks. So I usually see roses. Roses are everywhere, red or white, but I'm not seeing any roses in the cheeks of my mistress. Now again, you can go to epithalamion, where he says rosy cheeks of his bride, etc. in epithalamion. And in some perfumes is there more delight than in the breath that from my mistress reeks. See, now after the cheeks, he is saying that, of course, we all have the order of mouth. Okay. And we know how we inconvenient it will be if some kind of bad order comes, from the mouth of others, and we can't sit there, etc. So that is a very natural phenomena. And he is saying here that, of course, I know more perfumes which are very good, but I don't find any goodness, or I don't have any likeness towards the breath of my mistress. Of course, it is like any human being's breath, which may have a particular order. So he says, my mistress' breath is not having any exceptional quality or any significant quality which I can describe and say that it is like a perfume. I need not say that. So in the second quatrain also, we can see that he is describing cheeks, how they are not rosy, but they are very normal. And in and her breath, in her breath, he says that I don't find any perfume to get delighted, but it is like any other women's breath. And then come to the third quatrain. He is saying that I love to hear her speak, yet well I know that music hath a far more pleasing sound. My mistress, when she walks, treads on the ground. So here he is saying, of course, I love to hear her speak. This is again a convention of comparing women's speaking to some kind of musical quality or sonorous to hear, very pleasant, okay, very pleasing to hear also. Then here he says that, of course, I love to hear while she is speaking, yet I won't say that music hath a far more pleasing sound. Okay. I say that. So he says that I will not say that her speech is better than music, but I say, of course, music has a more pleasing sound than the speech of my mistress. So she speaks like any other women. It is not so musical, etc. for me. It is like any other human being or any other women speaking. And then, I grant, I never saw a goddess go. So he says, of course, let me tell you, I have never seen a goddess walking. See, the walk of women is also compared, no, as if angel-like walk, etc. And in Telugu, we have many comparisons like Mandagamana and Hamsanadagar, Nemalinadika, like that. So here he is saying that I grant I never saw a goddess go. So I have not seen a goddess walking. Then, of course, how my mistress walks, how can I compare? He is saying that, of course, my mistress, when she walks, treads on the ground as we all are doing. Of course, walking, of course, is taking your steps on the ground or floor, whatever the floor it might be, a grassy land or a rusty road or a concrete road or in a houses, etc. So, how we walk, how human beings walk. So, it is the same with my mistress. So he is saying, now I never see, no, if my mistress walk, I can't say that it is like a goddess walking, because I have never seen a goddess walking. So I think that my mistress, like all other women, will walk on the ground. And after comparing that, my mistress is my mistress cheeks are not that, eyes are not that, lips are not that, breast is not that, color is not that, her speech is not like music, her walking is not like any god is walking, etc. So all these comparisons are only to bring out the human quality of his mistress. That is what he concludes in the couplet. And yet, by heaven, I think my love as rare, and as any she belied with false compare. So this is the conclusion. So in spite of all that I say that this is not so, this is not so, etc. in my mistress, I think my love as rare. Of course, because I love, she is rare to me. No, it is not, she will not be rare if she is going to have rosy cheeks, or she is not rare only if her speech is like music, or she is not going to be rare only if she is walking like a goddess. With all her human qualities, with all her human features, he is saying that I think my love is a rare woman. Of course, she is good. As any she belied with false compare. So I don't want to give any false compare. Actually, all these compares, lips like red corals or red, and then eyes as bright as the sun, and body as white as the snow or other whiteness, etc. Try to imagine what kind of image that you can picture, or paint, or imagine with all these comparisons, eyes as red as the sun, okay, or lips as red as coral, so red coral, etc. With all these features, do you believe that particular lady will be looking like a human being? It will be very terrible to literally take, if you literally take and paint all those qualities with white color and the golden hair like wires, etc. It appears very strange also, and of course very disgusting also, I feel, and you can say it. So that is why he says that in spite of all these, I believe that my mistress is, of course, a rare woman, and she belied with false compare. As any, I don't want to belie her with any false compare. So this is the sonnet number 130. So I hope all of you are able to follow this.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I have notes also. I said I'll be sharing my
Yes, ma'am.
later. I forgot to share. I will be sharing. So I have given you some lines over in the PPT. You can write down. So the absence of hyperbolic comparison is what we could see here in this sonnet, and also it is an anti a an anti-Petrarchan sonnet that we could see, where he is of course a very he is not following the order of the day, the convention of the day, and he has broken that convention and has written in a very negative manner, of course, only to bring out the human quality of his beloved. Okay, and with this, I have finished all the sonnets that are prescribed for your study. So now you can just write down the possible questions that you may get. Okay. um, are you ready to write down?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the first question can be, what are the themes dealt in the sonnets? What are the major themes dealt in sonnets that are prescribed for your study? Uh, Questions can be asked based on the 5 sonnets together, or each sonnet or 1 or 2 sonnets can be taken and asked to give a critical analysis or bring out the themes, etc. So the first is about the themes of sonnets. What's themes that you can find in the sonnets that you have gone through. Okay. Another question can be like, mm, sonnet 116. Bring out the theme of immortality. Theme of immortality, as can be observed in sonnet 116 and also sonnet 55. That is what all the marbles, etc. Immortality. Some of you can tell me, is it 55 or 30? Yeah, it is 55 only. I think 30 is to the sessions of silent thought, no? Why nobody is responding?
Writing, ma'am.
Okay. 2 questions. Yeah, another question.
Yes, ma'am.
Another question is, mm, what are the characteristics of a Shakespearean sonnet? Shakespearean / English sonnet. What are the characteristics of a Shakespearean / English sonnet? Explain the characteristics with reference to the sonnets prescribed for your study.
Ma'am, ఇంకొకసారి చెప్పరా please?
What are the characteristics of Shakespearean / English sonnet? Explain with reference to the sonnets prescribed for your study. So hope you finished writing, and some other questions can also be asked. Okay, this is enough. If you are thorough with the summary or what you say gist of the each sonnet, of course you can write any question that is asked. Okay. See here, I've given you one sonnet. If you see the screen, this sonnet, one day I wrote her name upon the strand. This is sonnet 75 of Spenser's Emeriti. That is the sequence, sonnet sequence written by Spenser. If you read this, you will find what is the difference that you can observe, between Shakespeare's sonnets and then Spenser's sonnet. As we have discussed already in the introduction to sonnets, of course, the sonnets, of course, have a lyrical originality, and I told you that they present a kind of, objective. That is, though the speaker I is there, we don't think that it is all about the I, but it is general. It's very general, that is to say, general in the sense we feel that it is being written for someone else. It is not, though the introduction we have seen that Shakespeare's friend is being celebrated, that is the fair young man, etc. And some people think that the biographical analysis, they say it is Shakespeare, none other but Shakespeare only. And in spite of all that autobiographical element that is attached to the analysis of sonnets, etc., we find that Shakespeare writes with a kind of detachment from the themes that are being dealt, or the I, all pervasive I that is used in the sonnets, of course, also presents as if it is not the poet, but it is someone else. Okay, so this kind of objectivity is there in the sonnets, and lyrical originality. They seem to be very lyrical, musical, etc. So just if you read these lines that I have given here, they got from Spenser's sonnet, that is, one day I wrote her name upon the strand. The first line, of course, stands as the title of the sonnets. Usually that is the way. The title sonnets, in spite of numbers, they don't have any titles. So the first line is always considered as like the title. So sonnet 75 of Spenser's Emeriti gives us this. Okay. So if you read this, of course, like sonnet, Shakespeare's sonnet, you have the same rhyme scheme also. But if you read the first two quatrains, third quatrain, and the couplet, where you feel it appears very subjective. If you read, I hope all of you are reading. Some of you can share how you feel after you read this, and then you have Shakespeare's sonnet also. So though they are a part of Shakespeare's sonnet sequence, all sonnets, of course, stand good individually also, and they convey us a kind of message by the end of the sonnet. Say, for example, the sonnet 18 gives us the message of power of poetry as such, and one more sonnet that conveys us the power of friendship, or and other one celebrates the what do you say, universal nature of love. that is 116. Okay, sonnet number 116 gives us the universal nature of love, without, though it is all about his love for his beloved who is a man. So though there is that aspect also, all sonnets stand good if we remove them from the sequence, and if we want to seek some message from the sonnets, of course they provide us some message. Okay, so that is the greatness. But whereas if you read Spenser's sonnet here, in the last line, of course, our love shall live and later life renew. Somehow it gives us a feeling of, personal person, a person. The I, of course, is Spenser or whoever it is. It gives a kind of, subjectivity, the feeling of subjectivity. Of course, we can't say that Spenser is not a great poet. We can't deny that. But when compared to Shakespeare, that is why Spenser's Amity, of course, though received criticism, contains some good sonnets also. It's only for comparison's sake I have given you this. Yeah, the questions also I have given. Do you have any doubts regarding sonnets? Please try to interact. If you have any doubts in the previous sonnets also, we can interact. What happened? No one is speaking?
No, ma'am.
Who else are there in the class? Only 13 people have joined. Okay, with this I am closing sonnets, and I'll be closing the lecture also. Next I'll start the metaphysical poets. Okay, where the second unit I have to start. Okay, I'm closing the class for today.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye, ma'am.
bye bye.
Thank you, ma'am.